Welcome to the Roost News, the place for all things volunteer. I am Lillian Lee, co-lead for the Roost News, and today we welcome Polly Hunt, Community and Volunteer Engagement Director for the AARP State Office, the state of Massachusetts. Erin Martin, who's a volunteer in Massachusetts. Joseph Hiabayashi, hope I've got that right, Joseph. And he is the Associate State Director of Advocacy for AARP Utah. So welcome to you as well as Anola Johnson. She's also a volunteer, but she is in the state of Utah. So thank you all for being on the Roost News podcast today. This podcast is going to cover the topic of romance scams, and the guests will share how Massachusetts and Utah work together on this fraud topic. But before we hear from the state offices and how they work together, let's hear a little bit from our guest. We'll start with Polly and Joe. How long have you worked with AARP and what is your role?
Thanks, Lillian. My role is Associate State Director as well for our outreach team. So I am in charge of onboarding volunteers. I manage quite a few of the volunteer programs as well. So we have a very robust speakers bureau in Massachusetts that does about 200 presentations each year. One of them being fraud. Fraud is our most popular topic that we do. And then we have lots of other teams as well. So we have the fraud fighters, which we'll hear more about today as well.
Mhm.
And we have regional networks of volunteers. So we have a Boston-based volunteer network. We have a Worcester-based volunteer network. And then sometimes we'll have sort of pop-up groups of volunteers depending on what our advocacy initiatives are each year. So it might be social security based or voter engagement. So I get to manage all those different groups, and then we also
Great.
do a lot of
Wow.
events as well. Yeah, it's a lot. I've been here coming on 3 years now, so
Okay. Well, good for you. Okay, Joseph.
yeah.
Yeah, I've also been here almost 3 years. October will be my third. I'm the ASD of Advocacy, so I handle a lot of our work up at the legislature. As we were chatting right before this started, we fortunately just finished our legislative session last month, and Anola was a big help during that. But really looking forward to the rest of this conversation.
Great. Okay, so Erin and Anola, volunteers. We'll start with you, Erin. What's your role as a volunteer? And then Anola.
Thanks, Lillian. I was trying to figure out how long I've been volunteering. It hasn't been that long. I think that I started around October of last year. Most of my work focuses on fraud awareness, education on social media.
Great.
And I have been a volunteer since Erin put me in touch with Polly. Let's see, when
Okay.
was that? Uh, December, January, maybe something like that. So, but I've done quite a bit between then and now. So it's been great.
Well, thank you all for being a volunteer. It's very important. I'm a volunteer also with AARP for my state of North Carolina as well as for the national office. So thanks for sharing, and I am sure that our designated audience, the AARP staff and the AARP volunteers, enjoy getting to know a little about you. So, fraud is a major topic of interest in particularly romance scams, not just for our senior population, but for all because scams involve all age groups. When you hear the word romance scams, Joseph, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to AARP?
It's essentially faking a love situation where your end goal is not, love and connection. It's monetary, and so AARP typically looks at it as a fraudulent endeavor, and it usually ends in sending either physical money, cryptocurrency, or in some cases even gold.
Wow, gold. Okay, okay. So, Erin, you are a member of the Fraud Fighters team in Massachusetts. So, will you share the initial conversation that you had with Polly on your idea of a Fraud Talk Tuesday and how, from that conversation, you all contacted Anola Johnson? Why contact Anola Johnson from another
Yeah,
state? Yes, go
good
ahead.
question. I actually have to listen to podcasts to fall asleep because my brain just never shuts off.
Wonderful.
And I saw Anola's podcasts pop up, likely because I listen to a lot of fraud podcasts.
Mhm.
So I gave it a listen and it actually backfired because I couldn't go to sleep. I was so
Oh,
interested in it.
good. Well, I guess.
I was just really impressed at the way she articulated the scam that she experienced. Day to day, I struggle with articulating what I want to say. And I just
Mhm.
think that she was so clear and also so brave because a lot of people that this happened to, they don't talk about it.
Right.
And then we were talking with Polly about having a romance scam session with
Mhm.
AARP in February. So I just thought Anola would be the perfect guest.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that was a great connection. And Anola, please share about your podcast and what type of presentation did you give to the Massachusetts volunteers?
Um, I started the podcast a few months after my scam ended, and it was a way for me to work through what had happened to me, why it
Mhm.
happened, how it happened. Um, and I figured it was cheaper than therapy. So I just started writing and just putting my experience down, and then also trying to educate anybody who listened about how you can avoid falling into the same rabbit hole that I did. So when Polly got a hold of me, um, she led me to the wonderful Deb Bloomberg, who interviewed me for the podcast, and um, Deb just kind of went through the major steps of a romance scam and how that works. And so we just kind of went that way. And then there was a Q&A after. I did get one question
Mhm.
that was really unfortunate because
Mm.
I don't know how to answer it. And
Okay.
that is, how do you get somebody out of a romance scam
Mm.
that believes that they're in love, or
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
she this particular person had been scammed before by a person posing as Vin Diesel,
Mm.
and so she got out of that apparently, but now she's looking for Vin Diesel online. And
Wow. Mm.
how do you tell somebody, you know, that when their mind is already brain
Right.
jacked, how do you tell
Mm.
them to get out of it? That's a really hard thing, and I
Right.
haven't figured
I
out how
can.
to tell anybody to do it yet.
Wow. That yeah, that is interesting. Wow. So, Erin, you had Nola to do the podcast. Did you receive any feedback from the volunteers? What were their thoughts on the podcast? And would you do it the same again, or anything that you would enhance about preparing the volunteers for a podcast like this?
I think that every time we have a volunteer meeting, I'm hearing more people say how much they enjoyed Anola's talk. I think people agree with me with how well she explains the scam and just again how brave she was to talk about it. Not a lot of people do. There's a lot of shame around it.
Hmm.
People don't understand that it can happen to anybody. It's not anything that's wrong with you.
Right.
I think that maybe going forward for another one, what may be helpful is showing some visuals of what people can look out for. Um, Maybe, you know, what the conversation can look like, things like that. That might
Okay.
be an enhancement.
Wow, that sounds great. Very good. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a very good idea as far as enhancing for the volunteers. Great. So, Nola, what was your thought process after you complete the process? How did you feel it went with the Massachusetts volunteers?
Well, I'm not a professional speaker.
That's okay.
um, as you
It
can
appears that
probably
you've done a
tell,
great job, though. Okay.
I'm okay if I can write it out, and
Mm-hmm.
then, um, especially for audio, and then I can just kind of read it. Then I'm really comfortable. When people have to see me and I have to think off the cuff, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, once in a while there's a, a brain flub, well, let's call it, and
Okay.
I have to kind of get myself back on track again. But I know that I need to do these things as well,
Mm-hmm.
because telling my story is important. Not
Yes.
to me, but apparently to everybody else. I'm kind of sick of my story already, if I can say that.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm going to move to your story. That's really, that's sort of next, okay? Can you just highlight maybe not the entire, whatever you
Sure.
would wish to share,
Sure.
with the audience?
So, in 2023, I had a person um, reach out to me on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and
Oh.
that's kind of normal-ish.
Hmm.
But this person didn't have anything to do with my background, which is more in the travel industry. Um, but I had just gotten back from a trip in Paris, and he was nice looking and looked to be professional, and just started chatting with me. And then I'm the one that actually suggested that we get off LinkedIn because I don't like to be online all day.
Hmm.
And so we did that. It went pretty fast from there on. And a couple of weeks later, he was telling me that he loved me. Um, it's just the onslaught of love bombing and making you think that somebody actually falls in love with you, and
Hmm.
then just progressed. We were going to meet. He then had to be called away overseas to work on an oil rig, and um, so we pretty much texted from there on out. And it was probably about 3 months before he started asking for money.
Money.
Um,
Hmm.
but there was a situation where he wanted me to get into his bank account.
Mm.
And so I was able to do that. The first couple of times, everything went smooth. The last time
Mm.
we got locked out because
Mm.
supposedly his internet was slow. And so
Mm.
uh, I thought that I'd done something wrong. And
Okay.
he was going to try and get it unfrozen. Well, he couldn't. But when I looked at his bank account, it had over $4 million in it.
Ooh.
And so he was pushing me to loan him some money while, you know, before he came home. So looking at his bank account, I thought, well, no problem. So I just went and basically borrowed money to give
Mm.
to him.
Mm.
And before you know it, I, you know, I was looking like Mother Hubbard's cupboard.
Mm.
There was not a thing in it. So it ended basically when a federal agent called me and told me about something that I had sent
Mhm.
to Houston for his son for Christmas. And he asked me if that package was supposed to go to Nigeria. And I
Mm.
said, no, it's, for my boyfriend's son. And he said, well, they raided this person's apartment and
Wow.
they found probably about 90 boxes that were all being repackaged to go to Nigeria. So
Wow, what a
that's
story.
when I
Mm.
had absolute fact that I'd been scammed. And it took a couple of days to sink in. It was pretty harsh. And I called him back and told him the rest of the story. Um,
Mhm.
and supposedly they're looking for my money. I haven't heard anything yet, so we'll see what happens with that. I'm not holding my breath, obviously.
Right, right. Well, thank you, Anola, for sharing that with the public, as many people as you can share that with, because a lot of people still don't believe it happens. But you have that real story to share, and that's important. I love your background, romance, scam, rebellion. I keep looking at that sign. Very good, very good. So, and then another part of the story, Anola was being contacted to the Utah State Office. So, Polly, where, what's the next steps? Why did you decide to contact Anola to the Utah State Office?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know, having been at AARP for about 3 years, it is really hard to find those personal stories,
Hmm.
but it's the personal stories that the public connects to. You
Yes.
can hear it over and over, and you never think it's going to happen to you. You
Hmm.
read it, you look at the statistics, but people really connect with that personal story. It's a challenge for us in Massachusetts. I know it's a challenge for people in other states. So I reached out to Anola to see if she might be willing to share her story, knowing that Utah was probably doing similar work
Mm-hmm.
in the advocacy realm for fraud education, fraud advocacy at the State House. And Anola was graciously willing to share her story as she did just now. And so I reached out to one of our advocacy colleagues in the at the Massachusetts office, and he connected me right away to Joe. They'd actually been in the same onboarding session, I believe, as new employees when they started together. And so Ryan Berard connected me to Joe, and they took it from there.
Wow, that's wonderful. So, Joe, when you got the call to make a connection, what were your thoughts? Oh, this is a lady that can do a podcast for us on romance scams. Oh, a new volunteer. What were your thoughts about being connected to Anola?
Oh, my first thought was thank you to Polly. She kind of saved my bacon on that one. Uh, I guess before she came on board, I should background, and we had been trying for months to find advocates,
Hmm.
volunteers to share their stories about this really personal topic. And
Hmm.
talking to the choir here, you all know how hard it is to get people to share a story, and
Yes, yes.
very difficult to get them to share one when it has to do with you, with your, with romance. And so when we got that call, I immediately called Anola. It's maybe 5 minutes later because
Okay.
I'd been looking for her and I just didn't know
Ah,
she was, 25 miles up the road. So I think we set a lunch for maybe that week. It might have been that Thursday.
Like the next day.
Yeah, it was really quick because we were
It
we
was
were right
quick.
getting ready for session, and so
oh, okay.
it was kind of the perfect timing. And so I feel comfortable saying this because we've already discussed it, but Nola and I did essentially a vetting. It was a lunch to see,
Hmm.
can this person articulate? Do they have a real story to share? And I felt very confident because we were sent her from a different office. So I know that first vetting had happened.
Right.
So once we realized that Anola was wonderful and has a podcast and is well spoken and is willing to go above and beyond, we kind of skipped all of the lower rungs. And I immediately said, could I possibly convince you to testify in front of a committee of really nice people?
Did you
And
onboard her first?
okay, kind of. We were so close to session, it was kind of just
Right. Needed her.
immediately hit
Okay.
the ground running. And I'm glad to say that it all worked out and she did a wonderful job. But yeah, I think we kind of skipped a few steps just because it was
Right.
directly before session. And we can speak about it in a minute, but we had done quite a few efforts to find Anola, and fortunately,
Mhm.
Massachusetts was able to do it for us
Right,
from across the
right.
country.
Well, let's continue on. I know you were talking about the cryptocurrency, and I think that's a part of our script to hear a little bit more about that and the reform that you all did. If you all want to talk about that now, that's great.
Yeah, Joe, do you want me to start on our side?
Sure.
Sure. I think it's something that, the states and US territories are all working towards, sort of following Indiana's lead with a full ban. A
Hmm.
lot of these scams can lead to transferring money through cryptocurrency kiosks. And so older adults are also more susceptible to those scams. And so we're supporting a full ban at this point and working towards that at the advocacy level. So that's how that ties in with our advocacy work. And it's something that
Hmm.
we talk about at all of our fraud events. This is April, which is our fraud blitz month. And
Hmm.
so we're talking, at least at our state level, about the bill that we're supporting so that we can protect all residents across the state from being targeted, in these scams. So that's at our level. Joe, if you want to talk about Utah.
Yeah. So last session, Representative Wilcox had been informed about some child or human trafficking that was occurring in
Hmm.
Utah.
Wow.
And the reason this whole came to his forefront is that cryptocurrency ATMs were being used as the payment method to facilitate the human trafficking. And he is the chair of the law enforcement committee, so he's obviously right on top of that. And so he actually was the first one to jump on it in the interim. And then we quickly made contact. And a different senator, actually, Senator Brammer, was approaching it from more of the AARP angle of older Utahns were being scammed in his district specifically. And so we were able to get a bill together with the two of them, which then coalesced into one bill, maybe like the second week of session. And it was perfect because Anola was the human, right? It's really one thing to say, I can go testify and say the AARP lines that are factual and based in reality. It's a completely different story when someone like Anola can come and say, this actually happened to me. I live 10 minutes down the road from you, and here is how this is impacting not only me, but my community as well, because it is kind of outsourced to a degree. And so ultimately we were able to have Anola testify. And I hope I didn't tell you this, but right before the chair or the bill sponsor came to me and said, I'm not sure this is getting out of the Senate committee. Like, oh, well, that's perfect. We're testifying in 2 minutes. And it did. It did. And largely because Anola was able to anchor it to the reality, because Utah is a very tough state for anything related to finance. It's kind of the Wild West to a degree, especially when it comes to payday lending and things like that. And so ultimately we were able to put a $2,500 cap daily. And then after 72 hours, it goes to 5,000. That's of course not the 1,000, 2,000 we had started with. We started with kind of the AARP model, and then it was stripped away as we went. But as I told Anola, the fact that we were able to get that in shows that now with law enforcement training and some other things, we can now go back next year and say, well, it worked, but not well enough, because we're still seeing this influx. And so it's the groundwork that is needed, because Utah is usually a 3 or 4 bites at the apple till you get the final picture. So we're really thankful to Anola and to Polly and to Erin for putting this all together, because I have a grassroots background, and I tried every trick in the toolbox to find people, surveys and questionnaires and in-person meetings, law enforcement contacts, and we got all the data, but none of the qualitative. We didn't get the people. And so it really just goes the extra mile to have someone like Anola or Erin present.
Right. Anola, any thoughts when you testify?
Yeah. So, and I know that Joe worked hard on this. He's a smart guy. I respect him very much. But when I found out that it was 2,500 and then after 72 hours, 5,000, I just thought, okay, so all it's doing is kind of slowing things down. And this is nothing against you, Joe. I know that the lobbyists from the other side were there. And so when I heard that one of the cities in our state, Layton, had done a total ban on these crypto machines, I reached out to the mayor, and she said she couldn't talk to me very much because she was on her way to an event and had just kind of arrived when I called her. But she did say that other cities in Utah could follow the same blueprint, basically, is what they had done. So I took it upon my little old self to start emailing out to the other city councils in Utah and say, hey, we're getting there, but this is what the state did, this is what Layton did. I still think that we can do better. I still think that we can, keep people safe if we get these crypto machines, if we make them go away. Is it going to stop all fraud? No. But any hurdle that we can place in front of these guys is at least a temporary win, right? It's better than doing nothing. So I have had some positive feedback. I was invited a few days ago to go to one of the city council meetings. I don't know how productive it was. The lady that invited me was very concerned about the machines, but not everybody was so concerned. But I think that if we just keep pushing and prodding and trying to get people to understand what a scam tsunami the whole globe is in, that eventually we'll get some traction and get there. But I have had a couple of other people reach out and want me to come to their city council meetings. So I'm just kind of waiting to hear back from that. But it's better than doing nothing, I think.
It's a beginning, right? And,
Yeah,
as I said, your romance scam rebellion, that's what you're doing. Continue to do that, Anola. You're doing a great job.
I'm
Great.
rebelling
Thank you.
against
Thank
these
you.
guys.
Thank you. Yes. So, Erin, I'll come back to you. Thank you, Erin, for initiating the collaboration of Massachusetts and Utah. And this is wonderful. You continue to be an integral part of the volunteer work in Massachusetts. And it's my understanding you're the youngest fraud fighter volunteer in Massachusetts. Is that correct?
I really highly doubt that, but I'll take the title. I'm fine with
Okay.
that.
So, please share a little bit about what you're working on now in your volunteer role with Massachusetts.
Sure. Just continuing to help out with fraud initiatives. I'm also going to be at the volunteer conference. I believe that's what it's called at the end of the month in Worcester. In addition to that, I did start Fight Fraud with Erin because I'm just seeing all the scams that are happening and people need help. They don't
Yes.
know what to look out for. They really need somewhere to go. So I'm going to be helping them figure out if somebody they're talking to online is real. Also point them to resources like the AARP helpline, ways to report fraud, and also support for survivors is really lacking. So I collected some support resources as well.
Great, great. And I'm glad you're sharing that, Erin, because other volunteers in AARP land, they can hear that they too can go out and start advocating on
Yes,
their own. So that's wonderful. That's
absolutely.
wonderful. So, Polly, do you have anything else to share about Erin's role as we sort of bring closure? Polly?
Yeah, I'd love to just add that there are places for everybody. Erin has supported us. What started behind the scenes and really turned into a lead role here.
Mhm.
And we've seen through this story how it crossed boundaries and state boundaries and has supported
Mhm.
people beyond, I think, our wildest dreams that it would
Right,
from when it started. So I think for anyone who's interested in learning about volunteering, there's a role for everybody, whether you want behind the scenes or you want to take front stage. You can do it in a lot of different ways. This is National Volunteer Month as well. And so we're celebrating our volunteers, appreciating all of you and the work that you do. And we hope people find a good fit. It's all about testing the grounds until you find the right fit for you, because that's what's going to last over time.
great, great. Well, thanks so much, Polly, Erin, Anola, and Joe for sharing your stories from the Massachusetts and Utah State offices. And I like it with two state offices connecting together. This is the first podcast that we've done where we've had a couple of state offices really connecting together on a major topic, and fraud is definitely a major topic. So, as we bring closure to this podcast, is there anything else that you would like to share? This is your time. In case you've forgotten something and you want to say, oh, I forgot a little tidbit I want to share to the volunteers and staff.
I would just say, I want to say a big thanks again to Polly, Erin, and Anola. It's one of those things that you don't know what's in your backyard until you kind of change the
All
lens.
right.
And I think we were looking too broad instead of the really, really in our backyard.
Okay.
And the fact that Anola has taken the training we've done and just run with it, to have a volunteer say they want to reach out to city councils about a bill is pretty
Yes,
exciting.
it is.
And
It is.
and knowing that she has the chops and the ability to really advocate on behalf of herself and other victims is just incredible. And so just want to say a big thanks and hopefully encourage more of this kind of, what do you call it, interstate travel.
Okay.
Networking. It's networking.
Yes.
And
Okay.
Joe and I are going to be attending Scam Jam here in a couple of weeks up in another city just north of me. So, yeah, we've got stuff going on.
Great, great, great. Okay, well, volunteers and staff, please reach out to Massachusetts and Utah AARP state offices if you want to hear more about the stories that they have to share as it relates to fraud, romance scams, cybersecurity, or cryptocurrency. What a great program, what great information you all have shared today. And we want to encourage our volunteers and staff to subscribe to the Roost News podcast on YouTube or listen to the audio version on your favorite podcast. And of course, please invite your colleagues to subscribe also. If you have a story to share, please let us know. And on behalf of the Roost News Podcast, we thank you.